We should just crown Ryan Murphy the king of television. He's not messed up in any big ways, I think, since American Horror Story Hotel. Roanoke was okay. But he just released Feud, Bette and Joan. We got another anthology coming from Ryan Murphy. This is awesome. I loved Feud. This was such an original show, something I was never expecting to come from him, and I can't wait to see the next season. Feud takes place in a bunch of different timelines, but the main concept is we take two people who had a famous feud of history. The first season is about the famous actresses Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and their feud following their interactions on the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, the Oscars of the later year, and everything else happening after that. Two of the most profound actresses to ever live in the time of the 40s and the 50s, and then the 60s. They're getting older. They're not as famous as they used to be. They're not, drawing in seats. They're not these great actresses they were. Because that's something Hollywood takes away from you when you're an older woman and you're an older actress, is you become irrelevant and you don't matter anymore. And that's hard to think about. The way that this series tackles ageism and sexism is a way that I don't think we've ever seen truly put on screen in such a more beautiful and profound way. It handles it with class and elegance because you can tell in every scene of this series, the two smartest people in the room are Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. They're the most experienced, they have the most history, they know more about everything going on in the inner workings of Hollywood than any of the other people in the show. And I really liked that. And I love the way they handled the way that the characters hate each other and the history between them. And the actresses that play them. The actresses that play Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Susan Sarandon plays Bette Davis. Jessica Lange plays Joan Crawford. The two most perfect casting choices that this series could have done, because they really just work for their character. They understand the angles that they have to play because they themselves are getting older. They're older actresses. They know the struggle that these people are going through because Hollywood only wants young, beautiful women. And when you're older and you're a talented actress, it's so hard to understand the pain and the struggle that these actresses had to go, even in the 60s. And that is such a big concept. It's such an interesting angle that this series took, and I fell in love with it. In no way is this series an homage to old Hollywood or anything. You look at something like La La Land, which is a homage to old school musicals, or you look at something like Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers movie, which talked about, it was like a love letter to Hollywood and the studio system. This series, it takes the characters, it takes the real life people of Bette and Joan, and it just puts them in that world. And you believe that's the world you live in. This isn't an homage to any of that. It's not the filmmaker saying, here's what we seen back in the 60s for the studio and the dresses and all the concepts and everything. It's a lived in world. It feels real. It feels vibrant. It feels exactly like it would in 1961, 1962. It feels everything like those worlds. I just love everything about that. The costuming is so perfect on the show. I fell in love with American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, because of the way it looked real, it looked like the time, and that's exactly how I feel about Feud, because that's exactly how it looks in the time period of the 60s. You can see that these actresses and all the costuming and the cars and the sets, it looks real, it looks exactly like the 60s, and I just think it's a really vibrant show, really great story, and a really interesting concept I never thought we could see on television. And I have to give credit to Jessica Lange as Joan Crawford, because the way she handles herself and plays off of Bette Davis and all the other characters, it's incredible acting. Some of the best acting I've seen from Jessica ever. I just loved everything she did, the way that she handled herself as being this older woman, the way she took presence on screen, both as Joan Crawford and as Jessica Lange. It's Emmy worthy. It really is. She deserves to win an award for the way she portrayed this character, and nothing in this series could keep up with her, because she just had so much going on with her at once, and it was so incredible to see. And this is really her story. Yes, we do see a lot of Susan Sarandon and Bette Davis, but this is really about the anger and the pain that Joan Crawford felt. And you know what? That can come across as very one-sided. Maybe like Ryan Murphy really liked Joan Crawford and not Bette Davis as much. And that can come across sometimes in the series too. But it doesn't really affect the story, because this is a really Joan Crawford-centric story, which I understand why they chose Joan Crawford. The character and the woman, she is so important, she's so impactful, and you can see she's definitely the more bitter and angry of the two of them, because, Bette is so nice and young, and everyone's got this, good thing about her. And there's a scene in one of the earlier episodes, I'm not going to spoil anything about the series, but you can see Bette Davis was the best actress to live, and probably is still one of the greatest actresses to live. but then they say that Joan Crawford is one of the most beautiful actresses to live. And the dynamic shift between the two of them going against that, I loved everything about it. And Bette Davis, Susan Sarandon, incredible work too. Both these women need to win an award. They could both win the award together. Or they can do the thing, maybe, Jessica Lange wins the award, Bette Davis accepts it for her. Kind of like in the Oscars of the year when Bette Davis was nominated. Story was so real, it just made so much sense. I loved the characters. Susan Sarandon and Jessica Lange, they were so great, they were so perfect. Alfred Molina as Bob Aldrich, that was incredible. That was some great casting. The characters felt real. The first half of the season when we just see them working on the movie and the way they hate each other because they're the two women in the world who should understand each other the most, but at the same time, they are rivals because it doesn't matter what the role is. They're going to be competing with each other. They're going to be fighting each other because they're dealing with this old age and they're going to be cast in these typecasts of certain things. And it's so beautiful. It's such an original concept for a show I just fell in love with. And Stanley Tucci is Jack Warner. I thought that was incredible. What an incredible. The casting is perfect. The time, everything it looks, the way this handles sexism and aging, it's just a beautiful series. The main characters are so great. My favorite episode is the one where they hold the Oscars. I just think that's incredible. Very nice shot. Very beautiful time for this series. Everything about it just felt so real. Feud, Bette and Joan is definitely some of the best television we've had in a while. It handles so much different concepts, the characters and the people, and just the understanding that this is a real story told as true as it can be. It's undeniably insane, undeniably unique, and I just think it's interesting and incredibly well done. I'm going to give Feud, Bette, and Joan a 95%. This is some of the best television I've seen all season. I can't believe we have something like this just take over our screens and dominate as we watch it and just learn and love it. It's so unique. It's so brilliant. And it's one of the best things Ryan Murphy has put out since American Crime Story. I just loved everything about it. I can't wait that long for season 2. As somebody who is a fan of old school Hollywood, this meant a lot to me. The way that it handled it with maturity and brevity, I just thought it was great. So let me know what you think of Feud, Bette, and Joan. This is definitely a series I think you should check out if you haven't. And you know what? I'll catch you in the next video. Good luck.